Shopping malls feel strange after closing time, especially when you hear something moving inside. Story 1. The mall after midnight is not empty, it is merely waiting. I adjusted my heavy belt, the jingle of my keys sounding like a gunshot in the cavernous expanse of the main atrium. My name tag felt like a brand against my chest. As a night watchman at the Grand View Plaza, my job was simple: walk the perimeter, check the locks, and ignore the ghosts of consumerism. I started on the 3rd floor. The skylights were black voids, reflecting the rows of dormant storefronts like rows of jagged teeth. The mannequins were the worst part. In the daylight, they were plastic facades selling summer clearance. In the dark, they were statues of pale, faceless people watching me. I kept my head down, my flashlight beam cutting a frantic, jittery path across the polished linoleum. Kerchk! I froze. It was the sound of a metal security gate being dragged along the floor, a screeching, rhythmic metal-on-metal abrasion. I swung my light toward the Anchor department store. The shutter was down, yet the sound persisted, oscillating from the shadows near the fitting rooms. "Hello?" I called out, my voice cracking. "Security, you're trespassing. Come out." Silence swallowed my words. Then the sound changed. It wasn't a gate anymore. It was the wet, rhythmic slap of bare feet on tile. Slap, drag, slap, drag. My pulse hammered against my throat. I broke protocol and turned toward the sound, my flashlight beam trembling. I moved past the food court, where the smell of stale fryer grease and rancid sugar hung heavy in the recycled air. A high chair lay overturned near the center fountain. The water had been turned off hours ago, yet I could hear a slow, steady dripping coming from the basin. Drip, drip, drip. I approached the fountain, my breath hitching. The liquid wasn't water. It was thick, dark, and viscous, pooling in the basin. I looked up, and my light hit the 2nd-floor mezzanine. Standing there was a figure, tall, elongated, and unnaturally still. It wore the tattered remnants of a janitor's uniform, its limbs bent at angles that defied human anatomy. It wasn't looking at me. It was looking at the ceiling, its jaw unhinged, hanging slack against its chest. It didn't run. It simply flickered. 1 second it was there. The next it was 20 feet closer, standing at the base of the escalator. The emergency lights overhead hummed and buzzed, then flickered out, plunging them all into a suffocating velvet blackness. I didn't wait to see if it moved again. I bolted toward the service exit, my boots slamming against the floor, but the mall seemed to stretch, the corridor lengthening with every desperate stride. Behind me, the sound of the metal gate began to scream again, closer now, echoing from every wall, every storefront, every dark corner. The mall wasn't letting me leave. It was just starting its shift. Story 2. The silence of the Grandview Mall at 3 a.m. is not an absence of sound. It is a pressurized wait. As a night shift security guard, I've learned that the atmosphere changes once the heavy metal shutters are pulled down. The air grows stale, smelling of floor wax and the trapped, artificial breath of 1,000 dead mannequins. My flashlight beam cut through the atrium, a lonely blade of yellow light in an ocean of shadows. Every footfall on the polished marble echoed with an unnatural delay, as if something or someone were mimicking my pace from a few seconds behind. I stopped. The echo stopped. My heart hammered, a frantic bird against the cage of my ribs. "Just the ventilation," I whispered, but the sprawling, multi-level skeleton of the mall seemed to lean in, listening. I made my way toward the food court. The neon signs flickered, humming with a sickly, dying energy. I passed a storefront window, a high-end department store, and froze. Through the glass, a row of mannequins stood in a rigid formation, draped in velvet evening wear. I remembered passing them 20 minutes ago. Back then, they had been facing the entrance. Now, all 5 were turned toward the glass, their painted, featureless faces pressed inches from the pane. A cold sweat broke across my brow. I raised my flashlight, my hand trembling. Had I imagined it? The shadows played tricks, but the stillness was too deliberate. Then, from the darkness behind the fountain, I heard it, the rhythmic, wet thwack drag of something heavy sliding across the tile. I spun around, sweeping my light over the expanse of food court tables. Nothing but empty chairs upturned like skeletal fingers. I gripped my radio, but the static was thick, rhythmic, pulsing like a heartbeat. Thwack, drag. It was closer now, coming from the upper level. I looked up. The mezzanine railing was shrouded in darkness, but I saw movement, a pale, elongated limb retracting just as my light swept over it. It wasn't human. It was too long, too fluid, moving with the jagged geometry of a spider. Panic, sharp and blinding, surged through me. I turned to sprint toward the staff exit, but the mall had changed. The hallways felt longer, the floor tilting at an impossible angle. The store shutters I had locked were now standing wide open, revealing rows of merchandise that looked like piles of shredded fabric. I reached the double doors of the exit, clawing at the push bar. It wouldn't budge. Behind me, the thwack drag accelerated into a frantic, chaotic scramble. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see what was closing the distance. I pressed my back against the cold steel of the door, shut my eyes, and listened as the footsteps stopped right in front of me, accompanied by the sound of something wet and heavy beginning to breathe.